Page 257. Urvasi and Pururavas. D. Kosambi. Kosambi. One of Kalidasa's finest plays, Vikramarvasiyam, has for its theme the love, separations, and final reunion of King Pururavas of the lunar race and the nymph Urvasi. The Apsaras, on her way to heaven, is abducted by the demon Kesi, from whose clutches the mortal king rescues her. This led to their falling in love. She finds the divine city of Amaravati no longer attractive and proves her lover's reciprocal sentiment by a masked visit to his park. From the joy of this discovery, she is called to heaven to act the part of Lakshmi in a play staged before Indra. But the divine stage director, Bharata, sentences her to assume human form for mispronouncing Vishnu's name, Purushottama, as Pururavas. The curse is no great burden, as it enables her to meet with Pururavas, but the course of their true love is interrupted again and again. The heroine is turned into a vine because of an unwitting transgression. She stepped into a grove sacred to the six-headed god, Skanda Kartikeya, where no woman was allowed to tread without suffering metamorphosis because of the taboo. But she is changed back and restored to her husband by a charmed jewel. The jewel is stolen by a bird of prey. The bird is found shot dead by an arrow, bearing a legend which tells the king that Urvasi has borne him a son. This means another reunion which would be terminated by Urvasi's restoration to heaven. But Indra, having a war on his hands, allows her to remain on earth till her husband's death. Para. The crude analysis of a beautiful play by one of the world's great poets and India's great dramatist does no justice to the consummate skill with which the theme is handled and embellished. What interests me here is the theme itself. It can be traced right back to our oldest extant records, namely the Shatapatha Brahmana and the Rig Veda. The oldest report still contains some features of the play, for it is a dialogue between the two principal characters, totally foreign in appearance to anything else in the Rig Veda. The action takes place at a crucial moment when the hero pleads with the heroine and she refuses his request. Thus, the happy ending is a much later invention. Page 258. As we shall see, there is greater change than this in the structure of the story. This change reflects precisely the difference between Vedic society and the Gupta period, being in fact a transition from ritual to drama. Kalidasa's treatment. The theme attracted Kalidasa sufficiently to be treated more than once, being for him simply the reunion of lovers separated by circumstances or by disfavor with the gods. On the human level, we have his play, the Malavikagni Mitram, which contains some of the most brilliant passages composed by the poet. There, however, the heroine is a princess, forced to serve as a handmaid. On the other hand, the Shakuntala finds the hero unwilling to recognize either his wife or their son after a period of separation. some petty miracles being needed to bring him back to his senses. However, the lovers are always royal. The entire level is that of the court, but for an occasional scene in the forest or a hermitage. The king is always noble in character with his full complement of courtiers. In each of the three plays, there is at least one other queen between the two lovers, a variety of the eternal triangle that caused no difficulty in polygamous society. For the extra queen could yield gracefully while still remaining a queen. The characters are certainly oriented towards the contemporary reigning family, presumably the Guptas, as is seen from the language and the title Vikrama. Also by the fact that Pururavas is the founder of the lunar line of kings, while the son of Shakuntala is Bharata, bracket opens, the eponymous ancestor of the greatest Rigvedic tribe, bracket closes, who is again enrolled into the Soma line of descent. The women and servants speak Prakrit, a practice which reflects situation prevalent to this day in many parts of the country where formal school education has not yet made its way or is still confined to the males of a small upper class. Modern interpretations. Before trying our own analysis, let us consider what has been done by scholars of repute. Keith, Keith, footnote 1, admits that the explanation does not suffice for the earliest stage. The Rigvedic hymn is, quote, of considerable interest and obscurity, unquote, stop. He finds the sun-dawn myth of Weber and Max Muller, quote, quite unnecessary, unquote, stop. The whole story has no deep significance, according to him, Cologne, page 259, quote. The hymn clearly refers to one of those alliances of nymphs and men, which are common in all literature, as in the stories of Thetis, Thetis, and of the German swan maidens, who often for as long as 7 years are allowed to stay with mortal men, ... The taboo of seeing the hero naked is of interest and primitive in nature, ... stop. Pururavas is simply a hero, not necessarily ever a real man, but conceived as one, colon. Later tradition derives the lunar race of kings from him, ... stop, unquote. The trouble with this is that it explains nothing. If the legend is common and primitive, it has to have some fairly deep significance, particularly in view of its later survival and repetition in different ways. Para. Max Muller, footnote 2, had a very simple formula for these primitive myths, which he succeeded in translating into purely almanac language, colon. Thus, quote, Urvasi loves Pururavas, unquote, meant, quote, the sun rises, unquote, semicolon. Quote, Urvasi sees Pururavas naked, unquote, meant, quote, the dawn is gone, unquote, semicolon. Quote, Urvasi finds Pururavas again, unquote, meant, quote, the sun is setting, unquote, stop. Against this sort of fatuous equivalence, as in the Nirukta and Kumarila, there is no argument. Muller, however, gives an abstract of Kalidasa's play, yet only explains the Shotapatha legend. For there is no mention in Kalidasa of the taboo against Urvasi seeing her lover naked. Just why the simple sundawn myth had to undergo all these changes doesn't transpire from a reading of Müller's critic. Para. This is not to deny either Müller's substantial contributions to Indic philology or the legend's similarity to a sun myth. Para. Geltner, Geldner, whose account represents the heaviest labor of mature German scholarship. Footnote. 3. Saw nothing essential in the earliest version that did not survive in its developments. To him, the whole episode was just one more of many such Itihasa Puranas. The same attitude led Geltner to see a far greater continuity between the Veda and later Sanskrit literature, just as Shayana did. Then the facts, bracket opens, as now exemplified by archaeology, bracket closes, justify. Stop. For our purpose, Geltner's main service was a painstaking report on the principal versions of the story, semicolon. To these we may proceed forthwith, with the remark that Geltner's essay well repays close study in spite of its insufficient explanation of the original legend. Versions of the story. Geltner reported upon 8 different sources in his order, colon. 1. The Shatapatha Brahmana, 11.5.1 FF. 2. Kathakam, 8.10.3. Sadguru Shishya's commentary to the Sharvanu Kramani. 4. Harivamsa, bracket, noting virtual identity with the Vayu Purana, 29, bracket closes. 5. Vishnu Purana, 4.6.19 FF. Page 260. 6. The Brihad Devata. 7. Kotha Shorit Shagara, 17.4, bracket TR by Tawny, TAWNEY P and Zedia, volume 2, pp 34-6, semicolon, and note Roman 2.245, 5, bracket closes, stop. 8. The Mahabharata, bracket, critical edition 1.70.16-22, bracket closes, stop, para. Geltner noted that accounts 1, 4, 5 follow much the same lines. 2 is a dry excerpt. 3 adds the story of Ela, a son of Manu metamorphosed into a woman by stepping into a grove sacred to the mother goddess Parvati, and in that state bearing Pururavas as a son to Buddha, Budha. 3 also gives a motive to the curse upon Urvasi by adding the legend of Vashishta's birth from the combined semen of Mitra and Varuna poured into a kumbha. Para. The most important admission made by Geltner is that there are essentially 2 versions of the latter half of the legend, of which the older was tragic. The lovers never were united, at least in this world. Of course, this can be seen by any translation of the Rig Vedic hymn, but it is essential to know that it survived in Indian tradition, though Kalidasa could not accept it for his romance. What the German scholar failed to inquire was what was supposed to have happened in the original version to the pair after they parted. On this point, the Rig Veda gives no direct information, while the Shatapatha Brahmana ends by saying that Pururavas himself became a Gandharva after performing the correct sacrifice. The Gandharvas are the superhuman beings assigned as natural consorts to the Apsaras, but some doubt is added as to exactly what happened by the further statement that anyone who sacrifices in the manner of Pururavas becomes himself a Gandharva. However, Jelna should have followed the Mahabharata version further in the Puranas. The relationship is rather confused in the absence of any extensive analysis. But specimen legends have shown that the Mahabharata in its critically edited form contains the source of many important Puranic stories, though both may be derived from some older common source. The epic says briefly, bracket Mahabharata 1.70.16 to 22, bracket closes, that, colon, quote, opens. The learned Pururavas was born of Ila, who was both his father and his mother, or so have we heard, stop. Ruling over, bracket, Asnan, bracket closes, 13 islands of the sea, the victorious one was always surrounded by superhuman powers, though himself human, stop. Intoxicated by, bracket, his own, bracket closes, prowess, he crossed the Brahmanas, tore their treasures from the Brahmanas in spite of their outcries. Stop. O king, Sanat Kumara, having come from the Brahma world, gave him advice which he did not take. Stop. Then, cursed by the angered sages, he was at once destroyed, he, the king, who had been overcome by greed and lost his reason by force of pride. Stop. The same hero brought from the Gandharva world, along with Urvasi, page 261, the fires arranged into 3 for sacrificial purposes. Stop. 6 sons were begotten of Aila, A-I-L-A, bracket Pururavas, bracket closes, colon, Ayu, A-Y-U, Dhiman, Amavasu, Dridhyayu, D-R-D-H-A-Y-U, Dridhyayu, Vanayu, and Shrutayu, the sons of Urvasi, unquote, para. Of these 6 sons, only Ayu is known at the earliest stage. Seeing that the last 3 have Ayu as termination of a compound name, it may be admitted that an Ayu tribe derived their descent from Urvasi and Pururavas. At least 2 of the Puranas allow this story to be traced, the direct influence being proved by the fact that there the Nahusa story follows immediately after, as in the above Mahabharata section. The moral of both epic and Puranic narratives is that it is dangerous for any king to rob Brahmanas, to tax them, or press them into forced labor. The Arthashastra 1.6, on the other hand, says that Aila, Pururavas, came to a sad end by squeezing, bracket, taxes mercilessly out of, bracket closes, all 4 caste-classes. The Puranic specialization to Brahmanas is a late modification, but the Vayu Purana 1.2.13 to 21, which is copied with only trifling variants by Brahmanda 1.2.14 to 23, gives the exact manner in which Pururavas came to die. His greed for treasure was never satisfied. Once while hunting, he stumbled upon a golden altar made by Vishwakarman, at which the seers of the Naimisha forest were sacrificing, and tried to loot that. The angry sacrificers struck him with the sacrificial grass, which had become as Indra's, which had become as Indra's Vajra, so crushed the king yielded up the ghost. Para. Clearly, Pururavas was killed at a sacrifice according to this Brahmana tradition. That is extortionate greed was the cause is merely a warning to later kings. I submit that the cause may have been invented, but the killing cannot have been wholly divorced from current inherited legend. At this stage, let us repeat the Shatapatha Brahmana, Roman 11.5.1 version in Edgeling's Eggling', Edgeling's translation. Quote, the nymph Urvasi loved Pururavas, the son of Ida, Ida. When she wedded with him, she said, quote, thrice a day shalt thou embrace me, but do not lie with me against my will, and let me not see thee naked, for such is the way to behave to us women, unquote. Stop. 2. She then dwelt with him a long time, and was even with child of him, so long did she dwell with him. Stop. Then the Gandharvas said to one another, quote, for a long time, indeed, has this Urvasi dwelt among men, devise ye some means how she may come back to us. Stop, unquote. Now, a ewe, EWE, with 2 lambs was tied to her couch, The Gandharvas then carried off one of the lambs. Stop. 3. Quote, Alas, ALAS, unquote, Alice, within quote, she cried, quote, they are taking away my darling, as if I were where there is no hero and no man, unquote. They carried off the second, and she spoke in the self-same manner. 4. He then thought within himself, quote, how can that be a place without a hero and without a man where I am, ? And naked, page 262. As he was, he sprang up after them, Too long he deemed it that he should put on his garment. Stop. Then the Gandharvas produced a flash of lightning, and she beheld him naked, even as by daylight. Stop. Then, indeed, she vanished, Quote, here am I back, unquote, he said, and lo, ! She had vanished. Stop. Welling with sorrow, he wandered all over Kurukshetra. Stop. Now there is a lotus lake there called Aniyata Paksha. Aniyata Plaksha. He walked along its bank, and their nymphs were swimming about in the shape of swans. 5. And she, Urvasi, recognizing him, said, quote, this is the man with whom I have dwelt. Stop, unquote. They then said, quote, let us appear to him, unquote, stop, dash. Quote, so be it, ! Unquote. She replied, and they appeared to him. Stop. 6. He then recognized her and implored her. Rigveda 10.95.1. Quote, O my wife, comma, stay though, comma, cruel in mind, colon. Let us now exchange words, mark of exclamation. Untold, comma, these secrets of ours will not bring us joy in days to come. Unquote, semicolon dash. Quote, stop, comma, pray, comma, let us speak together, unquote. This is what he meant to say to her. 7. She replied, 10.95.2, quote, what concerns have I with speaking to thee? Question mark. I have passed away like the first of the dawns. Stop. Pururavas, comma, go home again, colon. I am like the wind, comma, difficult to catch, unquote, semicolon dash, quote. Thou didst not do what I told thee, semicolon. Hard to catch am I for thee, comma, go to thy home again, mark of exclamation, unquote. This is what she meant to say. 8. He then said, sorrowing, 10.95.14, comma, quote, then will thy friend rush away this day, never to come back, comma, to go to the farthest distance, colon. Then will he lie in near Nirrti apostrophe s, near his lap, comma, or the fierce wolves will devour him, unquote, semicolon. Quote, thy friend will either hang himself, comma, or start forth, colon, or the wolves, comma, or dogs will devour him, mark of exclamation, unquote. This is what he meant to say. 9. She replied, 10.95.15, comma, quote, Pururavas, comma, do not die, mark of exclamation. Do not rush away, mark of exclamation. Let not the cruel wolves devour thee, mark of exclamation. Truly, comma, there is no friendship with women, comma, and theirs are the hearts of hyenas, unquote, comma, dash. Quote, do not take this to heart, mark of exclamation. There is no friendship with women, colon. Return home, mark of exclamation, unquote. This is what she meant to say. Bracket 10, bracket closes, Rigveda.10.95.16. Quote, when changed in form, comma, I walked among mortals, comma, and passed the nights there during 4 autumns, stop. I ate a little ghee, comma, once a day, comma, and even now I feel satisfied therewith, stop, unquote. This discourse is in 15 verses had been handed down by the Bhavrkas, Bahvrcas. Then her heart took pity on him, stop, unquote, para. Thus the Shatapatha Brahmana account is a commentary on the Rigvedic hymn, though not explaining its most obscure features. The Brahmana then goes on by itself to say how Urvasi gave him a night of her company and gave him his son. The Gandharvas granted him a boon which he chose as being one of themselves. There too he received directions for the proper sacrifices. The account ends, colon, quote, 17. He then made himself an upper Arani, Arani of Ashwatha wood, comma, and a lower Arani of Ashwatha wood, semicolon. And the fire which resulted therefrom was that very fire, colon. By offering therewith he became one of the Gandharvas, stop. Let him therefore make himself an upper and a lower Arani of Ashwatha wood, comma, and the fire which results therefrom will be that very fire, colon. By offering therewith he becomes one of the Gandharvas, stop. Kalidasa retained the heroine on earth till the hero's death, rather than translate him to heaven forthwith. Stop unquote. Page 263, para. The last sentence of the Shatapatha quotation is meant for any later sacrificer. The similarity of Urvasi Pururavas, or for that matter any human coupling, closes, with the two portions of the fire plough, footnote 4, has been noted, the more so because the sun's name, Ayu, is also used as an adjective for Agni. This is one more natural interpretation of the whole myth. But let us remark for the time being that a definite locality was recognized for the dialogue and that the quote, happy ending unquote, was not part of the Vedic discourse, being clearly a later addition. The Rigvedic hymn is in 18 instead of 15 verses, which has been taken by some to denote a difference of version. Finally, what is the original meaning of quote became a Gandharva unquote question mark. This could not have happened while Pururavas was alive, for the Gandharvas at the time of the Brahmanas is recognized as a spirit who could possess women, say the spirit that caused their hysteria. Hence, though the Gandharvas possess a separate minor heaven of their own, a human being can attain it only as a spirit. For a Buddhist, the Gandharva is a condition of existence between death and rebirth. Para. If we combine the Brahmana with the Purana account, the common features is that Pururavas became a spirit, that is, lost his life, in some way connected with a sacrifice. Next file, Rigveda 10.95. Page 263. Rigveda.Roman 10.95. At this stage, let me introduce the original hymn which forms our ultimate source at present, and which will have to be accounted for if some new interpretation of the legend is to be proposed. 1. Bracket opens, Pururavas, bracket closes, quote, Alas, O wife, desist from your intentions, O dreadful one, let us discourse together, stop. If our chants remain unuttered, I repeat, if our chants remain unuttered, they will bear no fruit for distant days, stop unquote. Number 2, bracket opens, Urvasi, bracket closes, quote, What shall I do with these discourses of yours? Question mark. I have gone over like the first of the Ushas. Stop. O Pururavas, go back to your destiny, colon. I am as hard to get as the wind, stop unquote. Number 3, bracket opens, Pururavas, bracket closes, quote, Like an arrow to the target that wins cattle 100-fold, stop. Without heroic determination, there is no shining, semicolon. The chorus sets up a keening, Kwning, like, bracket, bleating, Blating, bracket closes, lamps, stop unquote. Number 4, bracket, extra, bracket closes, quote, that Usha is giving wealth and nourishment to the father-in-law, as long as wished, reached her destiny, bracket, Ashtam Nanakshe, bracket closes, from the inner house, which pleased her, semicolon, rammed night and day by the bracket, lovers, bracket closes, member, page 264. Number 5, bracket Urvasi, bracket closes, quote, thrice a day didst thou ram me with the member, comma, and impregnated me unwilling, bracket, as I was, bracket closes, stop. Pururavas, comma, I yielded to thy desires, semicolon. O hero, comma, then wert thou king of my body, stop, unquote. 6, bracket, question mark, bracket closes. This excited line, comma, noted together, comma, moving, comma, reflected in the pool, semicolon. These drawn arrayed ointments flowed, semicolon. They loved like cows, comma, the cattle decorated, bracket, question mark, bracket closes, stop. 7, bracket, question mark, Urvasi, bracket closes, quote, as he was born, comma, there sat the gods, unquote, wives, semicolon. The self-made rivers made him grow, stop. Thee, comma, O Pururavas, comma, the gods have raised for the great battle, comma, for victory over the Dasyus, stop, unquote. 8, bracket, Pururavas, bracket closes, quote, when I, comma, though human, comma, embraced the superhuman, bracket, females, bracket closes, who cast off their clothing, comma, they started away from me like does, bracket, question mark, Bhujyus, Bhujyus, bracket closes, or like horses touching the chariot, stop, unquote. 9, bracket opens, Urvasi, bracket closes, quote, if the mortal lasting after us, goddess mingles with the water nymphs, according to their will, comma, then do they display their bodies like swans, comma, nipping each other like stallions at play, stop, unquote. 10, bracket, Pururavas, bracket closes, quote, she flashed like falling lightning, comma, bringing me the craved waters, dash, from the water was born a noble lad, stop, may Urvasi grant me long life, stop, unquote. 11, bracket, Urvasi, bracket closes, quote, thou wert surely born for protection, semicolon. This power didst thou hand over to me, stop. I, comma, the initiate, comma, warned you on that very day, stop. Thou didst not listen to me, comma, why doest thou, bracket, now, bracket closes, speak like an innocent, question mark, unquote. 12, bracket, Pururavas, bracket closes, quote, when will the son that is born years after yearn, Y-E-A-R-N, yearn after his father, question mark. He will have shed flooding tears, comma, knowing, bracket, what happened, bracket closes, stop. Who dares separate the wedded pair in accord as long as the, bracket opens, ancestral, bracket closes, fire burns at the house of the fathers-in-law, question mark, unquote. 13, bracket Urvasi, bracket closes, quote, I answer you, comma, let him shed ample tears, comma, he will not cry, comma, heedful of my sacred office, semicolon. I shall send you that or thine that thou hast with us, stop. Go to thy destiny, semicolon. Thou fool, thou canst not reach me, stop, unquote. 14, bracket, Pururavas, bracket closes, quote, let your lover, bracket, Sudeva, bracket closes, today drop, bracket, dead, bracket closes, uncovered, comma, let him go to the very farthest distance, comma, never to return, semicolon. Let him lie down in the lap of Nirtri, capital N-I-R-T-R-I, bracket opens, the death-goddess, bracket closes, comma. Let him be eaten by raging wolves, stop unquote. 15, bracket Urvasi, bracket closes, quote. O, comma, Pururavas, comma, thou art not to die, comma, not to drop dead, comma. The unholy wolves are not to eat thee, stop unquote, bracket Pururavas, bracket closes, quote. There is no friendship with women folk, comma. Their hearts are the hearts of hyenas, stop unquote. 16, bracket Urvasi, bracket closes, quote. When I wandered among mortals in another guise and stayed with them for the nights of 4 years, comma, I ate just a drop of clarified butter once a day, semicolon. Sated with that, do I wander here now, stop unquote. 17, bracket Pururavas, bracket closes, quote. I, comma, the best, bracket of men, bracket closes, submit to the atmosphere hyphen feeling, comma, sky crossing Urvasi, stop, page 265. May the blessings of God, good deeds be thine, semicolon. Turn back, comma, my heart is heated, bracket with fear, bracket closes, stop, unquote. 18, bracket Urvasi, bracket closes, quote. Thus speak these gods to thee, comma, son of Ela, colon. Inasmuch as thou art now doomed to death, comma, thy offspring will offer sacrifice to the gods, comma, but thou thyself rejoice in heaven, stop unquote. Para. There is a great deal in the Shatapatha and other Brahmanas which shows to what extent Vedic rites had gained currency and the form in which they were practiced. But unconvincing prose stories inserted as explanations for the whole of the Brahminic literature is meant as commentary to ritual practice, and fantastic etymologies show that in many cases the origin of the rite, R-I-T-E, bracket, and consequently the real meaning of a hymn, bracket closes, had been forgotten, or was something entirely different from the modes of contemporary society. We must try to unearth for ourselves the original ritual whose lapse had led the Shatapatha Brahmana to account so badly for riks, RKS, fixed by the Vavrchas, BHVR.RCA, Bavricha's memory. Commentary to RV.10.95. The hymn undoubtedly contains the germs of all the latest stories that developed about Urvasi and Pururavas, and from which Kalidasa drew his material with such unrestricted freedom. We have to explain what survives and to explain it on its own merits with reference to a form of society in which no prose additions were needed. Para. The primary reason for the survival of any Vedic hymn is its liturgical function. If an odd hymn like this remains, it can only be because it had some very marked significance or utility which was lost after the composition of the particular verses. Of course, during the period of mere survival, all other parallel aspects are of the utmost help, including the fire drill, the sun myth, the romantic tale, the psychological image. Para. My explanation derives from as literal a reading as possible, with ambiguities left unresolved till the end, and then determined as far as possible by taking the sense of the whole. In italics, Pururavas is to be sacrificed after having begotten a son and successor upon Urvasi, semicolon. He pleads in vain against her determination. Stop, italics ends. This is quite well known to anthropologists as a sequel to some kinds of primitive sacred marriage. Para. Most of the Rigvedic hymns are meant to be chanted by one or more priests, but there are a few exceptions where, in italics, page 266, the hymn can only be explained as what remains of a ritual performance. Stop. The dialogue, italics end. The dialogue of Urvasi and Pururavas is likewise meant to be, italics, part of a ritual act performed by two characters representing the principals and is thus a substitute for an earlier, actual sacrifice of the male. Stop, italic ends. The extra verses are to be chanted by someone else to round out the action. That is, Kalidasa's play is very naturally based upon the oldest of plays. This is not a startling conclusion. Even modern European drama develops from the mystery plays of the medieval church, which themselves develop from and supplement church ritual. They offer a substitute for pagan, pre-Christian rites of similar purport. Para. If anything has been omitted, it could at most have been stage directions for the mime and not some prose narrative. The original meaning of natya is precisely miming, not acting in the modern sense. Para. It will be seen at once that this explanation serves to remove all the major obscurities of the hymn without doing any violence to the meaning of the words. The explanation fits better than any of the others that have been offered and shows at the same time why certain divergent accounts with a tragic ending survived in the Puranas. Let us look further into the details. Para. Pururavas addresses his wife as Ghore, Ghore, which means the grim or dreaded one, used for gods like Indra. Hardly a lover's term, though later this is taken as denoting her hard-heartedness. But he is emphatic that if their mantras remain unspoken, there will be no benefit in distant days. That is, the chant and action is meant to confer upon the audience the benefits associated with all fertility rites. Urvasi apparently tells her lover to get back to his home, Punar Ashtam Parehi, and this is supported by similar interpretations of the word Ashtam, ASTAM, in the fourth RK, which is admitted to be an extra verse. But look at the funerary hymn, Roman 10.14.8, where the dead man is sent back to his ancestors, and Yama with the words Punar Ashtam Ehi. There is no doubt that Pururavas is to go to his final destiny, pass from the sight of men, bracket, Ashtam Adarshane, Amarakosha 3.4.17, bracket closes. He himself says that he is to die, in 14, where going to a far distance, lying down in the lap of Netri, and so on, are familiar idiomatic circumlocutions for death. This has again been taken as a desire to commit suicide for being bereft of his love. A proposition far too romantic for the Rig Veda, particularly as no word of endearment passes between these two. Urvasi seems to console him in the next Rik, Arke, by assuring him that he is not to die. But look closer, and it is clear only that he is not to die a common profane death, not to be eaten by wolves like any untended corpse. Page 267. In the Iranian Dakhma, Dakhma, bracket, predecessor of the Tower of Silence, bracket closes, or the corresponding open corpse enclosure, the smashana described in so many Buddhist works, and even in the Katha Shagur. No, he is to be sacrificed to or by the gods. That was his destiny. Pururavas was raised for the battle of the gods against the demons, so it is not straining the sense to see in this Roman 10.95.7 the necessity for sacrificing Pururavas. The assurance, quote, "Thou doest not die," unquote, is given in almost identical terms to the sacrificed, cooked and eaten horse in RV.1.162.21. Na vai na etam mriya se. In fact, the horse is going to the gods, freed from all his earthly troubles, and brings victory to the sacrificers. We should not be surprised to find Pururavas assured at the very end that he is going straight to heaven. That is why he is Nritya Bandhu, not an ordinary mortal, but one literally bound to death at the sacrifice. This surely explains why Urvasi has the heart of hyena, 15, why Pururava's son can never know his father, but must console himself with thinking of his mother's sacred office, 12, 13, stop. Even when he asks Urvasi to turn, Ni Vartasva, 17, Pururavas does not ask her to turn back to him, but to turn away from him, for his heart quells with dread, quite naturally seeing what she is about to do to him. Earlier he had begged her for long life, 10, to which her only answer, 11, was that he had been amply warned in advance as to what fate awaited him if he insisted upon mating with her. The light diet admitted by Urvasi in 16 is perhaps a denial of cannibalism as a motive for killing the hero. The demon wives of the Katha Shagar derive or sustain their supernatural powers by feeding upon human flesh. The Tulasi, bracket, holy basil, bracket closes, plant is worshipped throughout the country, being planted in the courtyard or near the entrance of every devout Hindu household on square Vrindavana pedestals, which are really horned altars almost identical in form with those found at non-Israelite 10th century BC, Megiddo, Megiddo, and others still further away from India. The plant goddess is married every year now to Krishna, the reason buried deep in the mass of her legends, Mahatmya, being given that she is a widow. This can only mean the annual death by sacrifice of the husband, which brings us back to Urvasi and Pururavas. Next file, Urvasi's associates. Page 267. Urvasi's associates. There is some doubt still as to the translation of the first half of 10.95.6. R. Sujurni, Sujurnih, Granthine, Aranya, to be taken as names, or are they adjectives of Shreni, Srenih, question mark. Taking the latter meaning, we might have page 268. A description of the line of dancers at sacrifice. In the first sense, they are other apsaras, companions of Urvasi. These particular names are not to be found anywhere else, while the peculiar hiatus in Sumnapi, Sumnaapi, can't be explained in either case. The Atharva Veda does have several others, A.V.4.37.3 etc. The Vajasaniya Samhita 15.15ff.cf, also Taitti, Taitti, Sam 4. Roman 4.4.3 names a different lot, 2 by 2, so to accompany several gods. Punjikasthala, Kratusthala for Agni, Menoka, Sahajanya for Vayu, Pramalochanti, Anulochanti, bracket, both prone to strip themselves, bracket closes, for Surya, Vishwachi, Gritachi, Urvasi, and Purvachitti for Parjanya. As pairs of female attendants for each male god, they are a normal feature of temple reliefs. Especially in the south, and may be studied also in the Ambarnath temple AD 1060. These anticipate the later Shakti, later Shak, Shaktis, or the regular mates of the gods, bracket Lakshmi for Vishnu, etc. bracket closes. And it is remarkable that they should occur as early, so early. Clearly, the number of these nymphs is legion. Menoka, bracket, the name is a pre-Aryan word for coat, woman, unquote, bracket closes, is known in the Shakuntala episode for her seduction of Vishwamitra. Her daughter Shakuntala is, remarkably enough, herself called an Apsara in the Shatapatha Brahmana, Roman 13.5.4.11. She has some quite extraordinary features, for her name is derived from birds having fed her. I repeat, for her name is derived from birds having fed her as an exposed infant. These birds were carrion eaters, presumably vultures. MVH 1.67.10 to 11, and birds of ill omen, Shakunta. But Urvasi is the most prominent of these and is unquestionably a water goddess, besides being able to traverse the air as in Roman 10.95.17 above. Para. The Apsaras as water goddess. Para. The Apsaras as water goddesses appear in the legend of Vashishta's birth, RV.Roman 8.33, where the sage is surrounded by these nymphs. Roman 7.33.9. Vashishta is apparently clad in the lightning Vidyas Vidyuto Jyoti Pari Samjanam, Romans 7.33.10, which recalls the lightning flash of the later. Pururava's legend that disclosed the hero in his nakedness, being born from or because of the Apsara Urvasi and brought to human beings by the similarly born Agastya, was Vashishta's origin as a Brahmana, obviously un-Aryan, as we shall see later. Para. We may note in passing that several Apsaras occupy such prominent place near the beginning of some royal genealogy. Menoka, bracket Shakuntala, bracket closes, comma, Ghritachi, comma, Alambusa, etc. The marriage had to be in some way legal for such a genealogy to be valid in patriarchal society, while it was notorious both by actual matriarchal custom and later tradition that the Apsara could not submit to her husband as permanent lord and master. Thus Ravana said bluntly in violating the sea-born nymph Rambha, semicolon, Apsaranam patir nash, Apsaranam patir nasti, and was conscious neither of sin nor crime. Page 269. This obstacle was neatly avoided by the Apsara being cursed to human form and mortality for a period. Kalidasa found this convenient in ascribing a reborn Apsara as ancestress to Rama in the 8th Shargo of his Raghuvangsha, though some such tradition must have been current in his day. Para. There is no doubt that the Apsara is a water goddess, though her consort, the Gandharva, is generally in the sky, bracket, but again the golden-heeled Gandhariva of the deep in Iranian mythology, bracket closes, stop. In RV Roman 10.10.4 to 5, Yama and his twin sister Yami, the first humans, are born of the Gandharva and the water woman Apya Yosha, Apya Yosa, being fashioned by Twastr, Tvastr, even in the womb, to be husband and wife. In Roman 10.85, the Gandharva seems to have special rights over all women, especially the virgins. This partly accounts for the Appya Kamyani of Roman 10.95.10 and the child born from the waters, Janiso Apa Nariya. Of course, there is a clear physiological erotic factor also present. Psychoanalysis have maintained that quote, drawn from the waters, unquote, is an old presentation for just ordinary human birth. Para. Ila is a prominent goddess in the Rig Veda, remembering that goddesses in general are far less important there than the male gods. She is associated with Urvasi and rivers in Roman 5.41.19 : Abhi na ila yuthasya mata sman nadibhir Urvasi va grinatu, semicolon. Urvasi va Brihadiva Grinana Abhyur Navana Prabhrityasya Ayo. The Ayu, a capital, at the end may be Urvasi's son. The Mahabharata tells us that Ila was both father and mother of the hero, and the change of sex in the later accounts is clearly meant to link Pururavas to Manu, in spite of his having no father nor any known parent except Ila. Such changes are not unknown when matriarchy is superseded. The implications in that Pururavas is a figure of the transitional period when fatherhood became of prime importance, that is, of the period when the patriarchal form of society was imposing itself upon an earlier one. We shall have to consider whether this happened in India or represents some extraneous change preserved in Aryan mates brought into India. But it is clear as far as 10.95 goes that Pururavas is pleading the newer type of custom in marriage in the 12th Rik when he asks who can separate the married pair as long as the ancestral fire burns in the husband's paternal house. That the Pururavas of 10.95 is actually the son of Ila and not some other character is clear from the appellation Aila, A-I-L-A, a capital, in the concluding lines of the hymn. Para. To return to the birth from the waters, one may point out an episode whose parallelism has been partially recognized, namely page 270. The story of Bhishma, Mahabharata 1.91 FF. This great figure dominates the extant Mahabharata even more than the god Krishna. He is born of the river Ganges, who assumes human form to woo Pratipa, but accepts consortship of his son Shantanu instead. She kills her first 7 sons by drowning them one after the other in the river, which is surely her own natural form. Hence, the sons are sacrificed to her if one ignores the revision. The 8th is saved by the father's pleading, but then the river queen leaves her husband. That son is Devavrata or Gangeya, bracket, with 2 names, Dvinama, Dvinama, as we are specially told in Mahabharata 1.93.44, bracket closes, later named Bhishma. The change of name is occasioned by his strict vow to remain celibate. This leads him to abduct or capture for his stepbrother the 3 daughters of the king of Kashi, named curiously enough Amba, Ambika, Ambalika. All 3 names mean, quote, mother, unquote, comma, and are connected with water by the words Ambu and Ambhas. One should guess that they might be river goddesses, even forms of the Ganges, who has a triune image at Elephanta. Their names are particularly notable because of their joint invocation in the horse sacrifice, bracket Sat, Bra, Shatapatha Brahmana, Roman 13.2.8.3 TC, bracket closes. Of the 3, the 2 younger are married off to Bhishma's stepbrother Vichitravirya, who dies without issue. Bhishma is asked to beget sons upon them for continuity of the family, but refuses, though his vow has no longer served any purpose. The eldest sister finds herself cast off by Shalya, her former chosen one, and asks Bhishma to take his place, but is also rejected. She vows to kill Bhishma, though he has the boon of virtual immortality from his father, being able to live as long as he likes. Amba commits suicide, is reborn as or is transformed after rebirth into the male Shikundin, and ultimately kills the hitherto invincible Bhishma in battle because he cannot fight against a woman, not even against a man who had been a woman. Bhishma is killed by the river goddess, footnote 5, whom he rejected. The explanation that his opponent was a sexual invert will not suffice. Para. Other ramifications of river goddess worship are known, bracket J. Przybylski, Przybhuski, comma, I.H.Q. 1934, pp. 405 to 30, bracket closes. Perhaps the Indian custom of Visarjana, committing images and at times ashes of the dead to the waters, harkens back in some way to this tradition. Ritual marriage to mother and river goddess was definitely known to be dangerous. The gradual fading of the danger is seen in the Manusmriti injunction 3.19, not to choose a bride with any sort of terrifying name, among them specifically the name of any river. A similar caution is given by the quite practical and generally irreligious Kama Sutra 3.1.13. Therefore, though the naming of Indian girls after rivers is common nowadays, page 271, and has no effect upon their prospects of marriage, the fashion was definitely frowned upon in earlier days, undoubtedly for very good reasons. On the other hand, the Apsara and water goddess cult survives, for instance, near Pune, particularly in the Maval MAVAL region. The Mamala-Hara of Satavahana inscriptions at Karle. These goddesses, bracket, Mavala Devi, colon, quote, the mother goddess, unquote, bracket closes, have given their name to the country, are identified with the, quote, 7 apsaras, unquote, bracket, Sati Asara, bracket closes, comma, and are worshipped only in the plural, always near the water, whether well, pond, or river. But they do not seem to demand blood sacrifices nowadays, such as other rustic goddesses will require at least once a year. Their anticonic stones are still coated with red minium, MINIUM, or the goddesses themselves are symbolized by red streaks on a rock or tree. Stop. Text continued in next file. Page 271. The dawn goddess in the Rig Veda. The most important of Urvasi's associations has been lost in most translations. That is, with Ushas, the goddess of the dawn, and possibly the Brihadiva, BRHADDIVA, of Roman 5.41.19. In Roman 10.95.2, Urvasi says that she has passed over like the first of the dawns, and this seems a mere simile. The problem then is to explain away the Usha in 4, and this is done in many different ways, none convincing. The explanation I offer is that Urvasi has reached the status of an Ushas, and that this status is that of a mother goddess. Footnote. Footnote 6. Not of a mere goddess of the dawn. That was her, H-E-R in capital, destiny, as being sacrificed, was her lover's. We proceed to consider this in detail. In Roman 10.95.8.9, we noted that the Apsara and her companions strip off their clothing. That was also the way in which Menoka and others seduced the sages. Quite remarkably, it is the goddess Ushas who most often bears herself to the sight of men in this way. In Roman 1.123.11, she reveals her body like a young woman decorated by her mother, the Amis. avis, avis, tannam, tanvam, krinuse, drise, ham. Perhaps Roman 5.80.4 to 6 contain the oftenest repeated mention of the self-exposure of the dawn goddess, but her revealing her bosom and charms to men is quite common. Remarkably enough, this performance is seen often on styro-Hittite seals, bracket opens, W.H. Ward, Cologne, seal cylinders of Western Asia, CH Roman 1, Roman L, bracket closes, where the Indian humped bull is shown, at times as her pedestal. There is no shame attached to this. Nodha Ishavin Akrita Priyani, like a girl with yet immature breasts, bracket opens, Nodha Eva, after Grassman's suggestion, bracket closes, stop. We can understand the bewitching Apsara doing this, for it is her function to attract men. But why Ushas? Ushas, page 272. Para. In any case, why should this goddess of the dawn be so specially prominent in the Rig Veda when she seems to have no important function? There are at least 21 complete hymns dedicated to her, and she is important enough to be invited in the special sacrificial chants known as Apri-hymns. In these hymns, with their rigidly fixed structure, Ushas comes just after the opening of the divine doors, to be mentioned either together with the night, bracket opens, Ushasa Nakta, bracket closes, or in the dual, which would again mean the same pair. That is too high an honor for a mere witch or one who behaves like a hetera, Hetaera. Clearly, she once had a higher position for which we must search to explain the survival. Para. The former high position is not difficult to trace. She is the son's wife on occasion, as in Romans 7.75.5, Surayasa, Suryasya Yasa. Suryasya Yasa, but perhaps his sister and also his mother, Roman 3.61.4. Surajanandi. Yet this is not enough to explain her importance. In Roman 1.113.19, she is the mother of all the gods, Neuemian of Aditi, Cologne, Mata Devanam, Aditer Anikam. Her real status slips out in a most important reference, which is in a hymn dedicated to Agni, bracket Roman 4.2.15, bracket closes, Cologne, quote, We 7 sages shall generate bracket or be born bracket closes from Mother Usha's the first men sacrifices we shall become Angiras's sons of heaven we shall burst the rich mountain shining forth stop unquote. Usha's was therefore a high mother goddess, literally Matir Matula. How did she come to lose this position? Bracket. Para. Vashishta says, Abhad Usha Indratma Maghani, Romans 7.79.3, where the aorist, A-O-R-I-S-T, aorist past tense seems to me to indicate that Usha's had once been, but was no longer, superlatively Indra's equal. The support for this is from the tale of conflict between the two deities. The mention is not isolated, for we find it in Roman 2.15.6, Roman 10.138.5, Roman 10.73.6, but with greatest detail in Roman 4.30.8 to 11. Colon quote. This heroic and virile deed didst thou also do, O Indra, that thou didst strike Dawn, bracket, or Kali, bracket closes, the evil plotting woman, the daughter of heaven. Stop. Usha's, verily the daughter of heaven, the great, to be regarded as great, didst thou crush, crush, full stop. O Indra, Usha's fled from the shattered wagon in fright, when the bull, bracket, indica, bracket closes, had rammed her, stop. Her wagon lay completely smashed to bite on the Vipas, bracket, river, bracket closes, she, bracket, herself, bracket closes, fled to the furthest distance, stop unquote, para. There is no reason or explanation given for this conflict. Indra is the young god, one whose birth is mentioned several times and who takes the lead over all other gods because of his prowess in battle. In fact, he reflects the typical Aryan tribal war chieftain, irresistible in strife after getting drunk on Soma, page 273. His displacement of Varuna is just barely to be seen in a dialogue, Roman 4.42. Indra and the older chief god Twaster TVASTR have no such open conflict as this. To Kith, the wagon, bracket, Anas, bracket closes, signified merely that the image of Usha's was carried around the fields in such a cart, like the Germanic field deities or Demeter. But why was it smashed up by the new leader? Her fleeing to the furthest distance is equivalent to her death. At the same time, she is an ancient goddess in spite of her virginity and youth, which are preserved by her being born again and again. Punah punar, Jayamana Purani. Roman 1.92.10. The only possible explanation lies in a clash of cults, that of the old mother goddess being crushed on the river, BS, by the new war god of the patriarchal invaders, Indra. That she survives after being, quote, killed, unquote, can only indicate progressive, comparatively peaceful assimilation of her surviving pre-Aryan worshippers who still regarded her as mother of the sun, wife of the sun, daughter of heaven. Her behavior is reflected in that of apsaras like Urvasi, who degenerate into the witches of the Atharva Veda by natural development of the combined society, which really and finally kills their cult, except for local survivals in villages and the jungle. Para. The former, bracket probable, bracket closes, role of Ushas as the mother of creation and certainly of the Angirasas who claim affinity with the light deities can be untangled with some difficulty from the extant Rig Veda. Later mythology takes creation as resulting from the incest of Prajapati with his own daughter, the root stanzas being found in the RV. But in 1.72.5, it is clear that the father is the sky god, bracket, here a male, though often elsewhere a female in the same Veda, comma, hence a later fiction coupled to the original mother goddess, bracket closes, comma, while Ushas is emphatically the daughter of heaven, as both commentators and translators point out here. The progeny are the Angirasas. In Roman 3.31.1 SEQ. We have much the same theme as also in Roman 10.61.7, while in 1.164.33 the daughter has become the earth. This shows heterogeneity among Brahmana traditions. Her connection with later heterism, Hetaerism, may be seen from Sayana's comment upon the word Vra, V-R-A, which he takes as a name of Ushas, as for example in Roman 1.121.2 and Roman 4.1.16 in the latter hymn. It would make much better sense to take Ushas as the cow mother, the goddess whose thrice 7 secret names were known only to the initiates. Para. There is only one more reference to Urvasi in the Rig Veda, Roman 4.2.18 semicolon, AV.Roman 18.3.23, just after the striking mention of Ushas, page 274. With the 7 seers. The Urvasis are here in the plural, Ayu. Can again be taken as the legendary son or some adjective. The proper translation would be something like, quote, the Urvasis have taken pity upon mortals, comma, even to helping the latter kinsmen are you, unquote, stop. Presumably the son and successors of Aila Pururavas were not sacrificed, comma, patriarchy had conquered finally, stop. Para, the Rig Veda shows fainter traces of a different type of, quote, heterism, unquote, comma, which seems related to survivals of Aryan group marriage rather than to the cult of the pre-Aryan mother goddess, though the two need not be independent. The specific reference may be seen in RV Roman 1.167.4, where the goddess Rodasi is common to all the Maruts under the title of Sadharani, bracket, plus the incomprehensible Yarya, Y-A-R-Y-A, equals to fertile, question mark, bracket closes, stop. Whether this indicates fraternal polyandry, bracket opens, as I incline to think, bracket closes, or a form of prostitution is not clear. The question is further complicated by Rodasi, bracket, with a displaced accent, bracket closes, being elsewhere equated to the combination of earth and sky, hence two goddesses rather than one. The Ashwins are go-between for arranging the marriage of Surya with Soma, bracket opens, in Roman 10.85.8 to 9, hence originally of the sun goddess to the moon god, bracket closes, comma, which would make them her brothers. But they are clearly her husbands in Roman 4.43.6, comma, which again is not a contradiction in terms of group marriage of the older sort. We have already noted the identity of Surya with Ushas and Urvasi in later tradition, while the later hymn reduces Surya's marriage to a still current ritual which can only have arisen by a human couple impersonating the divine bridal pair. The bridegroom in Roman 10.85.36 takes his bride by the hand at the crucial stage of the wedding. Yet, in the very next arche, the woman is spoken of as she who receives the seed of many men, colon. Yasyam lingam manusya pupanti, and it would be odd to have this genetic mode of designation, unless indeed in some older days at least she would automatically have become the bride of several brothers or clansmen. Footnote 7. The later word Veshya for prostitute, from the same root as Vishya, presumably denotes the woman who dwells in a house common to all men. The Ganika clearly derives from group wives. In most developed societies whose primitive stages can still be traced, it is generally to be seen that prostitution arises as a consequence of the abolition of group marriage. Both are concomitants of a new form of property, patriarchal private property, which replaces communal possession of the means of production. AV Roman 15 shows the harlot prominent in Vratya fertility rites that were not generally fashionable. Text continued in next file. Page 275. Aryan or pre-Aryan. the character of Urvasi and her higher form, Ushas, has been delineated in the foregoing, but we have still to consider whether she was Aryan in the same sense as Indra, Varuna, Agni, or inherited from older civilizations. The parallelism with Ishtar hyphen Inanna, Ishtar hyphen Inanna, is unquestioned. Para. Of course, the question of some plausible mechanism for the adoption of pre-Aryan cults will be related. It will also be objected that, after all, the Indian seals portray exclusively male animals. The rare human figures are demonstrably masculine, were identifiable. The reasoning is in full agreement with this, for the seals belonged to a different set of people than the female figurines, to the men of the trader class, which was destroyed, along with the houses behind whose massive, undecorated walls they had piled up their wealth. The women with their cults survived, either as wives or slaves, which would account for all the traces of their cults that we have shown in Aryan documents, though at variance with the mode of living, bracket, not race, bracket closed, which is denoted by the word Aryan, para. The Rigvedic references to the dancing girl are casual, as if the institution were familiar to all. Yet, temples of any sort could not have been pastoral, Aryan, Vedic. There is no direct mother goddess worship, and we have seen that the Usha's cult was smashed up by no less a personage than Indra. In Roman 1.92.3, we hear women chanting at their work, presumably ritual, Archanti Narir Apaso Na Visti Bhi. In the next reek, we have Ushas weaving decorative clothes like a dancing girl. Adhi Pe Sansi Vapate Nritur Ina. The patterned cloth appears again in Roman 2.3.6 figuratively as the woven pattern of the sacrifice Yagnasya Pesas. This profession of weaving clearly belongs to the women and is in the process of being usurped by men, as I shall now show. Para. In RV Roman 5.47.6, the mothers weave clothes for their son, the sun, S-U-N. The knight weaves the sun's garment for him in Roman 1.115.4 and is a weaving woman again in Sayana on Roman 2.38.4 colon. Vastram Vayanti Narina Ratri. Most significant for my main theme. Ushas is also a weaver with the night colon. Ushasa Nakta Vaya Eva ... Tantum Tatam. Samuayanti. Roman 2.3.6. Therefore, it is again natural to find the apsaras in Romans 7.33.9 weaving the garment stretched by the all-regulating god of death. Yama, Yamina tatam paridhim vayantas. In Romans 7.33.12, the sage Vashishta was born of the Apsara, the jar, and the leg to take over the work of these nymphs in weaving the pattern of fate. Nevertheless, men other than Vashishta succeeded to less fateful types of weaving. Page 276. The yagna being woven is not only a common figure of speech, but the male seer of Roman 2.28.8 weaves his song just as the paternal ancestors in Roman 10.130.1 weave the sacrifice. Para. This change over to patriarchal production must have occurred at the time early Rigvedic society was formed from pre-Aryan conquered as well as their Aryan conquerors. Men seem always to have monopolized ploughing. Roman 4.57, while Brahmanaspati, a male priest god, swedges the world together like a smith. Roman 10.72.2. Para. We are now in a position to understand why in Roman 10.95.4 Urvasi claimed as Anushas to have given clothing and food to her father-in-law. That is, though she had a dread ritual to perform as Vidusi in Roman 10.95.11, she was initiated into certain arts as well, which had been the prerogative of her sex, and weaving was one of them. Thus, the Sayana gloss vasu equal to sign vasakam, clothing, is quite correct. The word later comes to mean wealth in general, and the Brahminical Ranasa, with its spicing and embalming of the Sanskrit language, makes this synonymous with all other forms of wealth. Nevertheless, the original meaning of the three main terms seem to have been separate. Dhana would indicate precious metals, loot in general. Rai must have originally denoted wealth in cattle and horses, seeing the gomat is used as its adjective so often. Vasu, I take it, meant primarily wealth manufactured and worn like clothing. At the time of the Atharva Veda, AV. Roman 9.5.14, weaving must have been a household industry carried on by women, for home-woven garments are there mentioned along with gold as a sacrificial gift. Spinning and weaving, but not needlework, appear in the list of a good wife's accomplishments in the Kama Sutra 4.1.33. Para. This raises the next question. In what way did Urvasi supply food to her father-in-law? For the Vaita Vyas, Vyas, in question might have been merely the result of her cooking. Of course, Usha's is often Gavam Mata, mother of the cattle, and the older plowless hoe agriculture may have again been a prerogative of the women as we find it in most primitive societies, but there is no direct evidence before us. However, we may use archaeology and anthropology to solve another riddle, namely the multiple account of Vashishta's birth in Romans 7:33, where he is born of the Apsara, the lotus or lotus pond, and also from the seed of Mitra-Varuna poured into a jar, kumbha. The answer is very simple, namely that capital T-H-E-D, capital Kumbha, K-U-M-B-H-A, is itself the mother goddess, all in capital letters, in spite of the masculine gender of the word. It is known that prehistoric handmade pottery before the introduction of the wheel and mass production, page 277, is fabricated by women. To this day, pots made by hand or on the potter's disc in India are made by women and smoothed by men with paddles and a stone anvil block. But no woman is allowed to work the fast potter's wheel in India, so far as I know. Moreover, the pots generally represent the mother goddess either by their decorations, the oculi or necklaces incised or painted on them as patterns, or by actual additions to complete the image, para. The Apsara in general is a mother goddess, as would appear from the AV's hymns called Matrina Mani. Later tradition, mixed as usual, is even stronger. Lakshmi, like Aphrodite, was born of the sea. She has the name Rama, Ma, and quote, mother of the people, unquote, bracket. Lokomata, cf. Amarakosa, Roman 1.1.29, bracket closes. This makes her a mother goddess, as should be all goddesses whose names have a suffix hyphen ma, Uma, Ruma, Rusama, etc. But there is some reason to think of her as originally as Apsara, apart from her being born of the waters. Though she is a goddess, wife of Vishnu Narayana, she counts as sister to the sea-born demon Jalandhara. Bracket Skanda, P 2.4.8, 2.4.14-22, bracket closes, husband of the plant goddess Tulasi Vrinda, whose story we have already reviewed above. The reader knows that the original quote, grove of Vrinda, bracket, Vrindavana, bracket closes, was on Krishna's home ground, in the Gokula at Mathura, according to ancient tradition as well as modern pilgrims' belief. There is no end of quote mark. Her cult most obviously has been separate from and older than that of Krishna. So Krishna and Narayana being married to Tulasi Vrinda annually is a comparatively late step in the assimilation of a mother goddess cult to that of a pastoral god. Certainly, Krishna's numerous wives, like the countless wives, mistresses, and casually violated nymphs of Heracles, must have been mother goddesses in their own right before the union, the ultimate fusion of cults rounded upon the merger of two entirely different forms of society. Para. We have already referred to the terracotta figurines that prove the worship of the mother goddess to have been prominent in the pre-Aryan Indus Valley. I now suggest that the great bath at Mohenjo-daro is a ceremonial pushkara. This curious building, situated apart from the city on the citadel-zikkurat, Zikkurat mound, could not have been utilitarian, seeing that so much labor had to be expended to fill the tank with water. There is no imagery or decoration of any sort, but the tank is surrounded by rooms which may have been used by living representatives, companions, or servants of the goddess, the apsaras of the day. The water need not have been so laboriously drawn unless for water deities to whom it was essential. Page 278. The range of seemingly unconnected meanings for the word pushkara is highly suggestive. Lake lotus, art of dancing, the sky. The root pus dot under s from which it is derived, like the very close pushkala, denotes fertility, nourishment, plenty. The whole nexus of ideas is connected with the Apsara, though she appears in the classical Sanskrit literature only as dancer and Houri, Houri. According to the Dhammapada Attakatha, Roman 4.3, and the preamble story to Jataka 465, the Lichavi oligarchs of Vesali had a special heavily guarded sacred investiture, Pushkara Abhisheka Mangala Pukharani. About AD 120, Nahapana's son-in-law, Usavadatta, went far out of his way to have the Abhisheka investiture performed at the court Poksara, P-O-K-S-A-R-A, bracket sick, S-I-C dot, bracket closes, tank, unquote, bracket EL7, P78, inscription at Nashik, bracket closes, stop. The Cambodian Apsara dancers of Angkor Wat are portrayed with the lotus flower in one hand and lotus seed pod in the other, the first symbolizing the Pushkara, while the second is obviously a fertility symbol. How old the tradition really is may be seen from the Indo-Greek coin of Peukeliotis, Peukeliotis, where the lotus-crowned patron goddess of the city, Pushkaravati, is portrayed in precisely the same way with the name Ambi equal to Mother Goddess. The Shatapatha Brahmana, Roman 7.4.1.11, tells us that the lotus leaf, bracket, Pushkara Parna, bracket closes, is the womb, bracket, Yoni, bracket closes, and in 13 that the Pushkara is the lotus leaf. Thus, Vashishta's birth has a completely consistent account, multiple only in the symbolism used. The Gotra lists mention a Pushkara Sadi Gotra among the Vashishtas. The Gotra is historical as a Brahmana priest of that gens, Gens, was priest of King Pasinadi, bracket Digha Nikaya 4, bracket closes, and a grammarian of that name is also known. The name means descendant of Pushkara Sad, SAD, he who resides in the Pushkara, which clearly indicates Vashishta. So does Kundin, from which the Kaundinya Gotra of the Vashishtas is derived. Neither the lotus pond nor the apsaras that tarries there could be Aryan in origin. It would be difficult to explain the fundamental and distinctive role of the lotus in all Indian iconography without relating it to the pre-Aryan cults, for the Aryan Vedic cults center above the sacred fire. One may note further that one of the holiest places of pilgrimage is a tirtha named Pushkara, identified with one of that name in Rajputana, but presumably representing earlier artificial tanks of the sort. The Pushkara is a necessary adjunct to every Hindu temple, not actually by a river, even in well-watered regions. Para. The Mahabharata birth story of the 100 Kauravas and their sister tells us that they were not born directly of their mother Gandhari, but from ghee-filled jars into which the undeveloped embryos were placed. Significantly, Kumbha is still used for harlot by lexica like the Vishwakosha, page 279. The Vidura Pandita Jataka, bracket Fossball 545, bracket closes, gives an extraordinary rule for success. Gatha 1307, namely that a kumbha filled with water must always be reverently saluted with joined hands. The Uda Kumbha, urn filled with water, does not appear to be particularly important in the Rig Veda, but has a very prominent position in the Grihya Sutras and in current practice. For example, the bridal pair must circumambulate the sacred fire which is accompanied by the water jar, though the Vedic god is Agni alone without the jar. The fire is addressed in some Rigvedic funerary hymns, but again the water jar plays an important part in modern Hindus' cremation rites, symbolizing the whole course of the dead man's life. Text continued in next file. The goddess of birth and death.